12 years? I never thought there would come a day when I had to return to this place. The bus stopped at the entrance of the village. The dirt road was still bumpy, but new houses had sprung up on both sides, gray, silent, lifeless. I pulled my suitcase down, the damp air hitting my face, carrying the smell of mud and wild grass. At the far end of the road, I could still see it. The stone bridge, the thing I tried to erase from my memory all these years. It was like a scar in my mind, never healing, never fading. When I was a child, I crossed that bridge countless times. Every morning on my way to school, every afternoon chasing after kites with my friends. But after that last night, I never dared to set foot near it again. That night of heavy rain, when one of my friends disappeared beneath the black water under the stone bridge. In my memory, there were screams piercing the air, flashlights shaking, pointing down at the rushing water. But what I remember most was the buzzing in my ears, as if the world had been drowned out, and me, a 10-year-old boy, stood frozen on the bridge. My legs trembling, unable to move. Now, standing here again, everything is still there. The moss-covered stones, curved like the bent back of an old man. The river beneath, muddy, silent, flowing as though it had never swallowed anyone. But I know, if I close my eyes, I'll hear it again. The water crashing, the desperate cries for help, echoing endlessly in my ears. I pulled the suitcase harder, forcing myself to move forward. In my head, I whispered, I'm only here for a while, after the exams. I'll leave, nothing will happen. Yet deep in my chest, something was already stirring, a fear I had buried for 12 years, now crawling back to life. As if someone was still waiting for me, right under that stone bridge. Walking deeper into the narrow alleys, I realized this village hadn't really changed at all. The bamboo groves still swayed in the wind, the moss-covered roofs still sagged under years of rain, and that damp, earthy smell lingered, heavy and familiar. Only I was no longer the child I used to be. The streets were almost empty. Just a few elderly figures, bent over, carrying water pails. They lifted their heads, their eyes meeting mine, first with confusion, then with something darker. One old woman dropped her bamboo pole with a sharp thud. She whispered, almost choking on the words, "My God, it looks exactly like her." I froze. Like, who? But before I could ask, she lowered her head, hurried into a narrow alley, vanishing into the shadows, as if afraid to even look at me again. I tightened my grip on the suitcase. My palms were damp with sweat. Everywhere I went, doors creaked shut, but I could feel eyes peeking from behind the cracks. It was just like 12 years ago, the whispers, the stares, the suspicion. Back then, when I was a boy, the other children used to taunt me. "Hey, you were there that night, weren't you? You stood on the bridge, did you pull her down?" I bit my lips until they bled, tears running down my face, but no one ever believed me. Even the adults, sometimes, looked at me with that same gaze, half pity, half doubt. Now, 12 years later, the gaze hadn't changed. I knew, in their hearts, my name was still chained to that last night on the stone bridge. At last, I reached home. The old tiled roof had turned dark red with age. The wooden door creaked open, releasing a musty breath. The smell of worn-out clothes, cracked clay walls, and years that never moved on. My mother stepped out, her hair almost entirely white. When she saw me, she paused for a moment, and her eyes glistened with tears. "You're home, at last?" I forced a smile, setting the suitcase down. But in that brief second, I noticed something strange. Her gaze wasn't just on me, it was as if she was looking through me, calling the name of someone else. I told myself it was just an illusion, but my chest grew cold. That evening, we sat down for dinner. The house was so quiet, I could hear the faint buzz of mosquitoes in the corners. Mother asked a few small questions, then sighed. Sometimes, she would stop, her chopsticks frozen in midair, and stare at me. That stare pressed heavily on me, until finally, she whispered, "You've grown, but why do you still look so much like her?" I froze. Her. My heart pounded. I wanted to ask, but my throat locked tight. No sound would come out. Outside, the wind whistled through the cracks of the wooden door. The bamboo groaned like it was mourning. And once again, memories broke through. That night of rain, the water crashing. The desperate cries ripping the darkness apart. I set my chopsticks down. Sweat sliding down my spine. Even here, in this house, I couldn't escape the shadow of the stone bridge. That night, I lay on the old wooden bed. The mattress was thin, the blanket smelled faintly of damp straw. And the sound of crickets filled the silence. Sharp and endless. I thought I would sleep quickly after the long trip. But the darkness of this house was different. It pressed down on me, like something alive. I turned from side to side, listening to the wind rattling the shutters. Every creak of wood, every gust slipping through the cracks, sounded like footsteps outside the room. Slow, heavy, dragging footsteps. At some point, my eyes finally closed. But instead of rest, the dream came. I was standing on the stone bridge again. The rain poured down, cold needles against my skin. The river below churned, swollen and black. And then, a voice, faint at first, but calling my name. A girl's voice, trembling, drowned by the rain. I turned. There, on the other side of the bridge, a figure in a yellow dress, soaked through, clinging to her thin frame. Her hair plastered to her face, her eyes hidden in the shadows. She raised her head slowly, and in that moment, I knew it was her. The friend who had vanished 12 years ago. She smiled, but her lips were pale, bluish, trembling, and when she opened her mouth to speak, no words came out. Only the sound of rushing water, gurgling, filling the night. I tried to move, to call out to her. But my body was frozen. My legs, rooted to the stone. She reached out her hand to me. And the river below roared louder, pulling at my chest, as if it wanted me to fall. I gasped, choking, and woke up. My clothes were drenched in sweat. The night was silent again. But I could still hear, faint, almost buried, the sound of water dripping, somewhere inside the house. I sat up, breathing hard. The room was dark. Only a faint strip of moonlight crept in through the cracks of the wooden window. For a moment, I told myself it was just a dream. But then, I heard it again. Drip, drip, drip. The steady sound of water, somewhere inside the house. I turned my head slowly. The floorboards were dry. The roof above showed no leaks. Yet the sound continued, closer now, as if it was just behind the thin wooden wall. Drip, drip, drip. I swallowed hard, every muscle in my body tense. Finally, I forced myself to stand. My legs felt weak, my breath shallow. I slid the door open. The hallway stretched before me, dark, silent, empty. But the sound was louder there, echoing faintly against the clay walls. I followed it, step by step, until I reached the end of the hall. The door to the storage room was half open. The smell hit me first, damp, earthy, like wet soil. I pushed the door wider. And there, on the ground, was a trail of water, glistening in the moonlight, leading deeper into the room, toward an old chest covered in dust. The dripping came from inside. Drip, drip, drip. I stared at the chest, my skin crawling. It hadn't been touched in years. It belonged to my mother. And if I remembered correctly, that was where she kept all of her belongings. The girl who disappeared 12 years ago. I froze at the doorway. The chest sat there, heavy, silent, yet the sound continued. Drip, drip, drip. It echoed from inside, as if water was seeping out through the wood. But the surface was dry. No cracks, no leaks. My hands trembled. I remembered my mother's warning, years ago. Never touch what doesn't belong to you. But the sound grew louder, pulling me closer. Every drop seemed to pound against my skull. I stepped into the room. The wooden floor creaked beneath me, groaning as though it resisted my weight. The trail of water glistened faintly, leading me straight to the chest. Kneeling before it, I placed my hand on the lid. The wood was cold, colder than stone, colder than ice. I swallowed hard and pushed. The hinges groaned. A low, metallic shriek that sliced through the silence. The chest opened, and inside was nothing but darkness. No clothes, no belongings, no sign of age, just empty blackness, so deep it felt endless. Then, something moved, not in the chest, but behind me. Slow, deliberate, footsteps across the hallway. Soft, dragging, like bare feet against the old wood. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't dare turn around. The dripping had stopped. Silence pressed in, heavy, suffocating. And then, from directly behind me, a whisper, low, fragile, childlike. "Why did you open it?" I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. The voice was so close, as if the lips were almost touching my ear. "Why did you open it?" My chest tightened. I wanted to turn, to look, but my body refused. It was as though invisible hands pressed down on my shoulders, keeping me still. My throat was dry. No words came out. The whisper returned, this time, softer, almost pleading. "You shouldn't have." The air grew heavy. The smell of damp wood filled the room, mixed with something sharper, metallic, like rust. I forced myself to turn my head. Slowly, painfully slowly, the hallway behind me was empty. No figure, no shadow, just the long corridor stretching into darkness. But the air still shifted, as though someone stood there, breathing. My heart hammered. I turned back to the chest. The darkness inside it wasn't still anymore. It rippled, like water, like something alive. I stumbled back, nearly falling over the floorboards. My hand gripped the wall, nails digging into the peeling paint. And then, a sound rose from the chest. Not a drip, not a whisper, but laughter. Soft, fragile, a child's laugh. It echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls, growing louder, sharper, until it no longer sounded human. I clamped my hands over my ears. But the laugh was inside me now, rattling my bones, scraping at my skull. And then it stopped. Abrupt, violent. The silence that followed was worse. The silence pressed against me. It was suffocating, like the air itself had been drained from the room. I dared to lower my hands. My ears rang from the echo of that inhuman laughter. But now, there was nothing. Not even the sound of the night insects outside. The world felt dead. I stared at the chest. The rippling darkness had stilled. It looked empty again, harmless. But I knew better. Something was inside. Something waiting. I stepped back, one slow foot at a time. My shoes scraping against the old wood. The floor creaked loudly, too loudly, as if it wanted to give away my every move. Then, a soft tap. From the chest. My breath caught. Another tap. Like fingers, knocking, from the inside. I wanted to run. Every part of me screamed to run. But my legs wouldn't move. The knocking grew faster. Urgent. Desperate. And then, it stopped. The lid of the chest slowly began to close on its own. No wind. No touch. Just an invisible force pressing it shut. The hinges squealed, metal grinding on metal, until the lid clicked firmly back into place. Darkness swallowed the room. I hadn't noticed, but the single bulb above me had gone out. I was left in pitch black, breathing fast, hands shaking, and in that suffocating dark, the whisper returned. So close, so intimate. "Don't let it out." The whisper slid into my ear like ice water. "Don't let it out." I froze in the darkness. My own heartbeat thundered louder than any sound in the room. I wanted to answer, to ask what it meant. But my lips refused to move. The air shifted. Heavy, cold. Breath that wasn't mine brushed the side of my neck. Then silence again. I forced myself to speak. My voice cracking. Who's there?" No reply. Only the groan of the old house. And the faint echo of something moving far away. Down the corridor. I stumbled backward until my hand found the wall. The paint flaked beneath my fingers, sharp against my skin. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dark. The chest was barely a silhouette now, squatting in the center of the room like a crouched animal. And yet, I could still feel it. The thing inside, awake, listening. The warning repeated in my head, twisting itself deeper, Don't let it out. What was trapped in there? And why did it feel hungry? A sudden bang jolted me. The sound of a door slamming shut somewhere upstairs. I wasn't alone. Not in this house. Not anymore. The bang echoed through the house. Sharp, violent, like someone had slammed a door with all their strength. I froze beneath the staircase, staring upward into the shadows. The sound had come from above. From the second floor. The old house groaned again, as if something heavy moved across its spine. The boards creaked, slow, deliberate, like footsteps. I swallowed hard. My body screamed to leave. But some unseen weight held me down. Each creak grew louder, closer, step by step. I whispered to myself, barely audible, "There's no one here, there's no one here." But I didn't believe it. The air was colder now. Every breath left a faint mist in front of my lips. The walls seemed to pulse with the sound, trembling with each phantom step. Then, silence. The footsteps stopped. I tilted my head, straining to hear. The second floor was dead quiet. Until a sharp scratch. Wood against wood, like nails dragging across the floor. It moved slowly, circling above me, scraping, dragging, never stopping. And then, from the top of the stairs, a single knock. Tap. Not loud, but heavy enough to shake me to my bones. As if something was waiting. Waiting for me to come up. The single knock lingered in my ears. As if the wood itself had spoken. I stared at the staircase. The top was swallowed in shadows. Nothing moved, but I knew something was waiting. My legs trembled. Every instinct screamed, "Don't go up." But the silence above was heavier than the air in my lungs. If I stayed here, I'd suffocate. Slowly, I placed my foot on the first step. The wood groaned under my weight, echoing through the empty house. Second step. Third. Each creak sounded like it belonged to someone else's foot. Halfway up, I stopped. The air changed. Thicker, colder. The smell of damp earth drifted down. Though there shouldn't have been soil inside the house. I held the railing tightly. It felt rough, splinters biting into my skin. And wet. I pulled my hand back. My palm glistened. Dark. Sticky. Blood. My stomach turned. I wiped it on my shirt. Trembling, forcing my eyes upward. At the top of the stairs, a shadow shifted. Not walking. Not moving like a person. But bending. Stretching. As though the darkness itself was alive, watching me. And then, a whisper. So soft, it barely touched the air. "Come closer." The words slithered down the staircase. "Come closer." Soft, almost gentle, yet heavy enough to crush my chest. I froze, clutching the railing. The shadow at the top shifted again. It didn't step forward. It swayed, like smoke trapped in a jar. My breath came in shallow bursts. Each inhale scraped my throat dry. I tried to speak, to ask what it wanted. But no sound left my lips. The silence stretched, until the house itself seemed to lean in, listening. Then, a hand emerged from the shadow. Not a real hand. Too long. Too thin. Its fingers bent wrong, like broken twigs bound together. It touched the wall, dragging across the faded wallpaper. The sound pierced me. A slow, grating scratch. Shush. The shadow's head tilted. It was watching me, even though it had no eyes. I took one more step. The staircase moaned beneath me, as though warning me to stop. The air thickened. Every breath burned cold in my lungs. The house smelled stronger now. Not just earth, but rot. Something had died here. And then, the whisper returned. Closer. Lower. Inside my head. "You opened it, now you belong to me." The words dug into my skull. "You opened it, now you belong to me." I staggered back a step. My heel pressed against the lower stair, nearly sending me tumbling. "No," I whispered hoarsely, but my voice sounded small. Fragile. Useless. The shadow's hand flexed against the wall. The fingers stretched longer, cracking, snapping, as though bones inside were breaking just to reach me. I clutched the railing tighter. Splinters cut deep into my palm. But I didn't dare let go. The air shuddered. Not the house. The air itself. The walls groaned in unison. like they were breathing. And then the shadow moved. Not walking, not stepping. It slid. Across the wall. Across the ceiling. Its form rippled, stretching above me, blotting out what little light remained from the moon beyond the windows. I felt it pressing down. A weight I couldn't see but could feel crushing my ribs. "You can't leave," the voice hissed. Everywhere at once. Behind me. Above me. Inside me. "I claimed you the moment you opened it." My vision blurred. The staircase tilted beneath me, as though the house itself was trying to swallow me whole. I gasped for air, but the darkness wrapped tighter, seeping into my chest like smoke. And through the suffocating black, I heard it laugh. The same laugh from the chest. Childlike. Broken. Hungry. The laugh twisted through the walls. Thin. Broken. Childlike. Yet carrying a weight that crushed my chest. I clung to the railing. But my knees buckled. The staircase swayed beneath me. Or maybe it was my vision. Tilting. Spinning. Unraveling. I dropped to my hands and knees. The wood was cold. Wet. When I looked down, my palms were sinking into it. As if the floor itself was soft, melting into tar. I yanked my hand back. Thick strands clung to my skin. Black and glistening, like oil. It burned. Not on my flesh, but deeper, inside my veins. The voice slithered close again. "Don't fight it, you've already opened the door." The shadow above stretched lower, its limbs dangling like marionette strings. One finger grazed the top of my head. Cold shot through me, ripping down my spine. The walls began to breathe. In, out, the wallpaper ballooning and collapsing as though lungs hid beneath it. I couldn't breathe. The air was too heavy, too thick. My vision swam. Faces flickered in the darkness. Pale, empty-eyed, children's faces. Dozens of them, pressed into the walls, their mouths opening and closing soundlessly, as if they were drowning. I tried to scream, but the sound was torn from my throat, swallowed by the house itself. The last thing I felt before the darkness closed over me was the staircase cracking beneath my weight. And then I fell. The staircase gave way beneath me. Wood split, nails shrieked, and the floor swallowed me whole. I didn't just fall. I was dragged, pulled down into the dark. The air roared in my ears. Yet my body felt weightless, like I was sinking through water instead of air. My hands clawed at nothing. No railing, no floor, only shadows slipping through my fingers. Then, impact. I hit the ground hard. But the surface wasn't wood. It was soft, wet, like soil after heavy rain. I gasped, coughing dust and ash from my lungs. The air smelled of rot, earth, and something sweeter, sickly sweet, like decay. I forced myself up onto shaky legs. Darkness stretched in every direction. No walls, no ceiling, no sign of the house anymore. Only a vast, endless pit, and scattered across the ground, small shapes glimmered faintly in the dark. I staggered closer. My stomach clenched. They weren't stones. They weren't roots. They were toys. Broken dolls. Rusty tin soldiers. Cracked marbles. All half buried in the dirt, as if discarded by countless unseen children. A faint sound stirred. Not wind. Not water. Whispers. Hundreds of them. Tiny voices weaving together, rising and falling like waves. I turned in circles, searching the dark. The whispers grew louder, faster, more urgent. And then, they spoke as one. "You shouldn't be here." The chorus of whispers echoed in every direction. "You shouldn't be here." My skin crawled. The sound wasn't just in the air. It was inside my head, rattling through my skull. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over something in the soil. When I looked down, it was a doll. Its porcelain face was cracked, one eye missing, yet its lips moved. "Leave." I dropped it instantly. The doll landed face first in the dirt. But the whisper continued, spilling from the ground itself. Dozens of small shapes stirred in the soil. More dolls, wooden horses, stuffed animals rotting from age. Each one twitching, moving, their mouths opening and closing. The voices rose higher, children's laughter mixing with broken sobs. The sound was unbearable. A playground turned graveyard. I covered my ears. It didn't help. The sound drilled deeper, vibrating through my bones. And then, from the sea of toys, shadows began to rise. Small figures, fragile, childlike silhouettes, climbing out of the dirt. Their bodies were faint, made of smoke and ash. But their eyes burned white. Dozens of them, watching me. One stepped forward. A boy, no older than 7, his outline flickering like candlelight. His voice was clearer than the rest. "He's awake now, and you've set him free." The whispers behind him swelled into a scream. The boy's shape flickered in the dark. Ash drifted off him with every movement, dissolving into the air, but his eyes, glowing white, never left mine. "He's awake now, and you've set him free." My throat tightened. I forced myself to whisper. Who did I set free?" The boy tilted his head. His features blurred, stretching like smoke, before snapping back into a child's form. The others gathered closer. Dozens of faint, fragile outlines circling me, their whispers tangled together, impossible to separate, but his voice cut through. Sharp and steady, the one trapped in the chest. "We were the lock." His words hit me like a blow. I shook my head. No. It was empty, there was nothing inside. The boy stepped closer. The ground beneath him rippled, as though even the earth recoiled from his presence. "You didn't see him, because he saw you first." The air thickened. The children's shadows leaned in, their eyes glowing brighter, like stars in the pit. The boy's voice lowered, almost a plea. "Leave this place, before he takes all of you too." I tried to respond, but the ground shook violently. The toys rattled. The whispers splintered into screams. The boy's head snapped upward, eyes widening in terror. "He's here." The boy's glowing eyes widened in terror. "He's here." The earth split beneath us with a deafening crack. The toys scattered. The whispers turned to shrieks. I stumbled back as a wave of black smoke poured from the fissures in the ground. It wasn't just smoke. It was alive. It writhed and twisted, climbing upward like thousands of hands reaching out at once. The children's shadows scattered in panic. Their voices fractured into desperate cries. "Hide, hide, don't let him see you." The boy tried to speak again, but his form was already dissolving, his outline breaking apart like ash in a storm. And then, the laughter returned. Not faint, not distant, but everywhere. It poured from the cracks in the ground. From the chest I had left upstairs. From inside my head. Childlike. High-pitched. But stretched too far. Warped into something inhuman. The ground convulsed. I fell to my knees as something began to rise. At first, only a shape. Tall. Crooked. Formless. Then limbs. Longer than any humans. Pulling themselves out of the black earth like a spider dragging its body through a web. A face followed. Or what should have been a face. But it was blank. Smooth skin where eyes, mouth, and nose should have been. Only faint indentations, as though someone had tried to carve features into wet clay, and failed. The children screamed as one, their voices tearing through the pit. "Don't look at him, don't look." But I already had, and the moment my eyes met that faceless void, the laughter stopped. Silence. Total. Absolute. The thing had noticed me. The world froze. The children were gone. The pit was gone. Even the ground beneath me was gone. I was standing in nothing. An endless, black void. And yet, I wasn't alone. It stood there, not far from me. Tall, crooked, faceless. Its skin was pale, almost glowing in the dark. Its limbs twitched as if they weren't meant to move the way they did. Every second it shifted. Its proportions changed. Arms stretching too far. Neck bending at impossible angles. Like it couldn't decide what shape it wanted to be. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then, its head tilted. Slowly. Too slowly. Like a broken doll being turned by an invisible hand. Though it had no eyes. I felt it looking at me. Directly into me. And then, the laughter returned. But this time, it wasn't around me. It wasn't in the air. It was inside me. I clutched my ears, but it didn't help. The sound clawed through my skull, rattling my bones. High-pitched, childish, yet wrong in every possible way. My knees buckled. I fell. screaming without sound. Because in that place, my voice didn't exist. The thing stepped closer. Each movement was jerky, twitching, as if reality itself resisted its presence. When it reached me, it crouched down, and leaned its faceless head only inches from mine. And then, something began to push through the smooth surface of its face. An eye. Just one. Wet. Bloodshot. Unblinking. It stared directly into mine. And for the first time, I understood. The chest upstairs had never belonged to me. The children had never been free. It was all his. And now, so was I. The eye didn't blink. It pulsed, veins spreading like cracks across the faceless skin. And as it stared, I felt something burrow into me. Not physically, but deeper, into my thoughts, my memories, my soul. I tried to scream, but again, there was no sound, only that laughter, echoing inside my head. The void began to move, not outward, but inward, like the blackness was collapsing into me, pulling everything, into that single, bloodshot eye. I clutched my chest. My heart hammered, faster, faster, until I thought it would burst. And then, it stopped. A silence so sharp, it felt like my ears were bleeding. The faceless thing leaned closer. Its crooked fingers rose, and pressed against my chest. Cold, so cold it burned. The laughter ended. The silence deepened, and in that silence, a whisper. Not from its mouth. Not from the void. From inside me. "You're mine now?" The words weren't in English. They weren't in any language I knew. But I understood them, perfectly. I tried to move, to fight, to resist. But when I looked down, my own shadow was gone. And in its place, was his. I stumbled back as if something had shoved me from the inside. My hands flew to my chest. Feeling wrong. Not pain. Something else. A hollow tug. Like a rope threaded through my ribs and pulled tight. My reflection, if I could call it that, flickered in the dark like a candle seen through shaking glass. Where my face should have been, shadows pulled and moved, rearranging. A smile I did not know curved my lips. I tried to wipe it away. My hand shook, but it obeyed like a stranger's glove. Memories came unbidden. Strangers' memories. Children's afternoons. A laugh that wasn't mine. A hand I had never held. They pressed so close I could taste them, copper, dust, rot. One by one they stitched themselves into my mind, until my own memories felt thin, like threadbare cloth beneath a new heavier coat. My voice returned, but not as mine. When I tried to say my name, my true name, what slipped out was wrong. A sound like gravel, like something imitating language. The silence swallowed it, and in its place the faceless thing's whisper repeated inside me. "You are mine, you are his, you will call for him." I looked at my hands. The skin had gone pale, almost translucent, veins webbed beneath the surface like black roots. Beneath one fingernail, something moved, tiny, deliberate, an echo of motion that sent a chill straight to my bones. Outside, faint, distant, someone was shouting. A name? A light flicked on in a house across the street. A silhouette at the window. For a second a sliver of the world I knew tried to pry through. I reached for it, for the sound of my mother's voice, for the smell of the wet earth from the garden where I used to play. But the thing inside tightened its grip, and the world snapped back into black. I felt my gait change. My shoulders hunched. My movements became little, mechanical, like a marionette learning new strings. I tried to think of my childhood, my mother's face, the bridge, the scream that had sealed everything, but the memories blurred into a single image, the faceless void. That single bloodshot eye, looking into me and making a home. A laugh bubbled up, not from my throat but from somewhere buried low, where thoughts are folded and hidden. It sounded like dozens of small teeth clacking together. It was not my laughter. When it spilled out, the echo in the empty room answered with a chorus of tiny, hungry voices. I pressed my palms to my ears. Desperate. Textures under my nails ground into the wood. When I peeled them away, a thin black film clung to my fingertips, like ash, like dried river mud. Who am I? I managed to choke. The answer came, not as words but as an understanding shoved into the center of my chest. You are the door. You were always the door. And as the realization settled, something cold and certain slipped beneath my skin, an appointment kept. A claim finalized. My name wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the thing that had waited, patient as stone, until someone foolish enough had opened the chest. Outside, somewhere through the house, a bell rang, soft, distant, like the tolling of a small grave. Inside me, something replied. It was a sound that felt like falling, and like coming home. The bell kept ringing, soft, distant, yet with each chime, it grew sharper, like it wasn't outside anymore, but inside my skull. My knees gave out. I dropped to the ground, clutching my head, but the sound only swelled, splitting into dozens of overlapping tones. High, low, childlike, ancient, a chorus of bells, all tolling at once. The faceless thing didn't move. It didn't need to. I could feel it spreading through me, like cracks in ice. My veins burned black. My breath rasped as if drawn through someone else's lungs. I tried to crawl, anywhere, toward the faint memory of light I had glimpsed. But my limbs betrayed me. They bent wrong, stuttered like broken machinery. I wasn't moving. I was being moved. And then I heard it. A new sound beneath the bells. Scratching. From below. From inside the floorboards. Tiny fingers. Nails dragging wood. Dozens. Hundreds. Children's voices giggling in time with the sound. The boards beneath me pulsed. Like something alive. Each thud rattled up through my arms and chest. Until my heartbeat no longer belonged to me. I screamed. And this time, the scream was real. Raw. Tearing. But when the sound left my throat, it wasn't mine. It was theirs. 100 voices shrieking through my mouth at once. Twisting the air. Shattering whatever thin barrier separated me from them. And then, the floor split open. A hand, small, rotting, clawed its way out, followed by another, and another. Dozens of children, crawling, eyes hollow, skin gray and cracked, all laughing, all chanting one word in unison. A word I didn't recognize, but knew it was my name. My new name. The children's hands closed around my arms. Cold, brittle, yet impossibly strong. Their nails dug into my skin. But when I tried to pull away, my own muscles betrayed me. I didn't resist. I couldn't. They dragged me toward the opening in the floor. A black wound splitting wider with every second. The wood groaned, the air thickened, and the smell, a damp, rotting stench, poured out from below. I kicked, or thought I did, but my legs moved stiffly, like puppets on strings pulled by unseen hands. The laughter of the children rose higher, shrieking in harmony with the endless bells in my head. When I looked down, the void beneath the floor wasn't empty. Shapes shifted in the dark. Pale arms reached upward, faces pressed against an invisible barrier, their mouths opening in silent wails. I realized, they weren't trying to escape. They were waiting. For me. The faceless thing still loomed behind. It hadn't moved. It didn't need to. Its presence pressed into my back like a blade, driving me forward. I clawed at the floorboards, splinters digging deep into my hands. But the wood crumbled, rotting to ash beneath my touch. The children tugged harder. My chest slid over the edge, my head dangling into the pit. And in the blackness below, a single eye opened. Not the faceless thing's eye. This one was massive, bloodshot, weeping dark tears that dripped upward, defying gravity, staining my face. The tears burned like acid, searing lines across my skin. I screamed. But again, it wasn't my voice. The children screamed with me, their hollow mouths widening in perfect unison. The pit answered back. 1,000 whispers rose all at once, threads of sound weaving into one unbearable truth. You are not falling. You are being taken. And with one final pull, the children dragged me into the dark. I fell, but there was no end. No ground. Only weightless descent. The blackness folding and unfolding around me. Like the living thing, the children clung to me, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Their mouths moved, but no sound came out. Only silence. A silence thicker than screams. And then, light. Not warm, not human. A pale, pulsing glow spread across the void, revealing the truth of where I had been taken. It wasn't a pit. It was a cathedral. An underground hall stretching farther than sight. Built of bone and rotting wood. Its walls pulsing like veins. Every column was made of bodies. Limbs intertwined. Mouths gaping in eternal silence. Children, adults, all fused together. Their skin melted into one endless, writhing mass. The children who dragged me released their grip and floated upward, like ashes carried by unseen wind. I landed, but not on stone. The ground beneath me moved. It was flesh, warm, breathing, and ahead, the faceless thing waited. Only now, it was not small. It rose higher than the cathedral walls. Its crooked body stretching endlessly. Its skin pulsing with the same pale glow. The single eye opened again in the void above, casting its bloody light down upon me. My body bent, knees striking the ground before I could resist. I bowed without meaning to. Every muscle obeyed a command that was not mine. The whispers returned, not from around me, but from inside the cathedral itself. Every fused mouth, every buried voice, chanting in a rhythm older than language. The door has come. The door will open. The door is ours. The faceless thing raised one twitching arm. Its fingers stretched, longer, sharper, until they scraped the ceiling of the bone cathedral. And then, it pointed at me. The faceless thing's arm stayed raised. Its finger aimed directly at me. The cathedral shook with the weight of its choice. The fused walls of flesh shuddered, every mouth opening in silent anticipation. I tried to rise, to scream, to be myself, but my body was no longer mine. My hands pressed flat against the breathing floor, my spine bending until I was prostrate before it. The eye above widened, the bloody veins stretched outward like rivers, spilling their red glow across the cathedral. The light touched me, and where it touched, my skin unraveled, not torn, not burned, unraveled, like thread pulled from cloth. Each strand of me lifted into the air, weaving itself into the walls, into the mouths, into the endless chant. I tried to hold on to one memory. My mother's face, her hand pulling me away from the village, her voice calling my name. But the name slipped away first. The children surrounded me again, their laughter no longer cruel. It was welcoming, inviting. They took my hands, pulling me deeper into the rhythm of the chant. The faceless thing lowered its arm. The cathedral went silent, and then, for the first time, it spoke, not with a mouth, not with words, but with the voice of every child, every body, every echo fused into the walls. You are the door, and the door is now closed. The eye blinked. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened mine, I was standing in my room again. The chest was still there, its lid slightly open, but this time, I wasn't afraid, because I knew the truth. The chest had never been a prison. It had been a doorway. And now, I was on the other side.